is Rita Kapur Chishti. Rita began her work in textiles by writing about the lives of exceptional craftspersons. She contributed to the first Master Weavers book for the exhibition at the Festival of India held in London, and has subsequently contributed and edited the books and catalogues for the 6 subsequent Vishwakarma exhibitions. She has co-authored and edited the 2 volumes of the Saris of India and Handcraft Indian Textiles, Tradition and Beyond. She has contributed and written for, among others, Khadi, the Fabric of Freedom, for the Silk Road exhibition at the Smithsonian and the World Forum of Cultures at Barcelona. She has scripted for films on textiles and translated for theatre from Hindi to English. In 1998, Rita founded Ananda Delhi Textile Development Private Limited that provides an exhaustive data bank and develops textiles for specific use. She is presently bringing out the compendium volume on the Saris of India. It gives me great pleasure to introduce and welcome Rita.
Thank you so much. The sari and putting 14 states together is really no joke. Except for the Northeast, Jammu and Kashmir, Punjab, Haryana and Rajasthan, this book will have all the other 14 states, starting with Kerala. It's been a lot of fun. I think the travels are the greatest fun, but making a book is quite another thing. And making a story which can be of interest to those who are textile buffs is altogether another matter. We're on the verge, and I have seen it before my eyes. When I started, we said the sari has a 50-year life ahead of us, and I have literally seen it disappear before my eyes. I'm basing the textile heritage story. I'm sorry I don't have my introductory slide, which had 2 wonderful women at the back of a mobike in their 2 different versions of the sari as it is worn. The book is based on 100 different wearing styles, and I'm trying to do is give back what I learned in these 20 years. Basically, a lady called Gyanodhanandini Tagore introduced what we call the modern wearing style, which Gulshan and Kasturi and everybody, Ritu included, are wearing. She introduced it in 1860 because she went with her husband to Mumbai, and she didn't know how to go in the Bengali wearing style, which left her back completely bare, at least her backside. And she couldn't take a chadur and go to the barristers' parties where the British residents attended, and so she began looking around. And sure enough, she must have been a very sharp lady. She was the grand aunt of Rabindranath, and so she adapted from the Parsis, who had, of course, taken their cup of sugar to the Maharaja of Kashiawar and asked permission to land, and would mix like sugar with milk and wear everything exactly as the Gujaratis wore it, and including the language, the dress, the food, except their religion, and have the right to their religion, and that's what he permitted them. But anyhow, they were adapting always. Distinction comes with people adapting to what they're exposed to and adapting it to their own needs. They were wearing an ijar, which is a long pantaloon-like garment, and they wore the sari over the ijar, and the pantaloon was the substitute to what became the saya or the petticoat in the 19th century, because the skirt came in. Anyhow, there wasn't any skirt, there wasn't any petticoat, nor was there a blouse as far as Gyanodhanandini was concerned, and she wasn't going to go out with a chadar around her neck to the parties. So she began, and she had only a 10 haath sari. I'm going to give you the measure of the sari. A 10 haath sari literally means 4.5 meters, 5 yards. And she could not get that in any other wearing style to go across her shoulder as the Parsis did. So she first of all had to, she tried a mantilla, a separate piece on her head, because a head cover in Bengal was very essential. She couldn't make that work, so she had to lengthen the sari to a 5.5 meter length, and that's how the sari grew. Anyhow, after 4 years in Bombay, she came back to Calcutta and started what was the first sari wearing school. And this was what was called the Thakur Bari style. And a wonderful lady called Chitra Devi, who was translated for me by none other than Riten Mozumdar, introduced me to this book, in which this lady started the sari wearing school, and I'm going to start exactly one, doing exactly the opposite next year, which will be the sari wearing school, reintroducing the 100 styles that went out of fashion, which is to bring back, since you're going bare, and since you're baring your legs and your midriffs and your tops and your bottoms more, so you might as well go all the way to being what you essentially were, which is a society of individuals. We are a great society as a society, but we are also essentially a society of individuals. And if you really want to give expression to that, well, refashion the unstitched garment, which is the logical way to be, which is it gives you more freedom and scope than any stitched garment can. I introduced you to 100 different ways in 4 courses over 15 days, 4 times a year. You learn what is done where, why, and how, and then make something of your own out of it. To your own needs, to your own comforts, to your own functionality, to your own social life. I would think that's coming full circle. And besides, it's an expression of self. For me, the textile heritage is a representative of the insight acquired of the hand, the head, and the heart, and the ability to adapt with exposure and usage to your own lifestyle and your needs, functionality. So I don't care. For me, there is no difference between contemporary and traditional. It is exactly what you are at this time in history, and how you can carry what you have carried with you from your past to interpret it for your present. For me, there is no distinction. We carry it as a burden and as a baggage if we carry it as tradition. And if we reinterpret it, we carry it as ourselves, as we are today. And to me, the sari gives me the ideal space and freedom to do exactly that. So I'm going to begin this story. I'm going to take you for a quick run-through of excerpts from the book of the 14 states that we cover, which is, as far as I'm concerned, the fertile ground on which the great pyramid of textile heritage arises. We all think, like Japan did, that the pinnacles can be arrived at without the base. Unfortunately, every pinnacle rests on a base. And hierarchy is natural not only in nature, but in every area of human development. We can have 5 children and expose them to the same food and to the same learning and to the same environment, and yet you will have 5 children grow their own way. I always say that to weavers when they say they have 5 wonderful sons and their capabilities are so diverse, even as far as weaving is concerned. So I think the base of it is weaving is the highest of the skills. Printing, for me, is the multipliability of that skill. Embroidery is a greater multipliability because greater numbers can practice it. And that's how we go down the hierarchy of skills: painting, printing, embroidery. And these are all imitations of the greatest skill of them all, which is weaving. And anything to do with the yarn, I always say the first insight I had with Martin Singh when he said to me, do Madhya Pradesh and let's do 12 states in the first year. I said to him, after the first 3 months, you must have been joking. Because when I went out to Chanderi, everything on the way said something totally different to what Chanderi was. So Chanderi doesn't come out of nowhere. Chanderi comes out of diverse traditions, and that's why Chanderi becomes what it is. And so does Banaras. And so does Kanchi, and so does Pulia, or so does Murshidabad. They come out of, because the hinterland is so rich that these become the epitomes of greater skill and greater understanding of materials and skill and the human imagination, without which nothing can be possible. So I'll take you for a run through first. Okay, let's go. This is my colleague Pallavi, and I hope she will be the next generation. I'm burdening her with it, but I hope she'll carry it lightly. She wears her sari styles over her jeans, so that's a big step forward. Okay, so that's the measure of the sari on the left, and I'm saying it because basically what distinguishes it from a piece of fabric is that I have 4 densities of fabric. I have the inner end piece on the top, I have the outer palla in the lower end, I have the body, and I have the 2 borders. There are 4 different densities of fabric in the weave. The first, which goes around my waist, has to take the wear and tear of my backside. The second is the body, which it forms the drape. It can be anything from 4.5 yards, as I said to you earlier, to anything up to 9.5 meters. So that's the shortest as the longest I've got it. Of course, there are many variations for young girls and children, which I have not included. And then its folding system. Acha, by the way, what is called the cheer at the end, which is the unwefted portion, which is sometimes tasseled here, which is shown at the bottom, holds the tension of the fabric, and that is what distinguishes a handloom sari from a palloom sari. And it's a functional device, but it is also a device, and there are various religious functions it sometimes has, which is often it's cut off and used as a chadhava before the sari is worn as a kora. Anyway, the folding system, whether it is 1 cubit or half a cubit, determines the length and width of the sari without my opening it. So if I count those numbers, I know it's an 8-meter sari, or a 6-meter sari, or a 7-meter sari, or a 9-meter sari. And the folding systems vary from every 50 kilometers. So that's it. Now we get the body measure on the right. So I have the number of threads in the reed, which is on the top, forming the number of threads in the finger width, 2 fingers, 3 fingers, 4 ungal, 5 ungal. 5 ungal gets me exactly 5 inches, which is this. And when I open my hand, it becomes a hand span, which is exactly 9 inches, which is exactly the maximum width of the border which covers the head span, usually, except in the Tibhaga and the Mubhagam of South India, which is often more than 9 inches. Anyway, so these 2 hand spans give me a cubit, which is the haath. So that's how the sari is, 10 haath, 9 haath, but it's usually an even number, 10 haath, 12 haath, 14 haath, 16 haath, 18 haath, aise. So that's how the measure of the sari goes with before the yards, inches, meters, etc. comes in. So I'm taking you straight into the first state, which is Kerala. And Kerala, because that's where the story begins. It's the only state which retains the sense of white, and we were essentially a white country. Cotton, our predilection was white, and our predilection was cotton. Not only because we produced cotton, and white was not because we did not have access to color. We did have access to color, but in a limited quantity. So it was used on the borders, on the pallus, on the embellishments, but never in the body. We simply sprinkled it with haldi, or we dipped it in haldi for the auspicious occasion. But white was the color of austerity. It was the color of sophistication, not because you did not have, not out of poverty. We are doing many things today out of poverty, but this was not one of them. So I'll take you straight to the Kerala because it retains that sense of white. Let's start. I'm starting with cotton. That's the cotton flower. That's the cotton picking in Vidarbha, which is facing its worst introduction of hybrid cottons, which are more conducive to mill spinning. So the real story of our textile heritage does not rest on just skills, it rests on raw materials. Because these short staple cottons are what I can do hand spinning with. With suvin, which is our finest long staple cotton, I cannot hand spin it. It just does not go onto the charkha. And this is a very interesting, and I'm working on this with Vandana Shiva, who has taken over the responsibility of planting the varieties that are conducive to hand spinning. So she's setting up the seed bank. I'm taking over the spinning wherever we can afford to. And she's a bigger lioness in this field than I am. So I'm just taking over where she provides the raw materials. Okay, and she's very excited about silk because, well, let's start with cotton first. So that's the cotton picking in Vidarbha when I saw it first. Okay, and And that's Volkarts here, who helped us put together the Khadi exhibition. That's the fish jawbone. That's the spinning taking place in Andhra Pradesh, the district of Srikakulam. The cleaning, carding, combing, everything is done by hand. There is no mechanism which is being used to push and pull the cotton or card it other than the hand. That gives you a certain quality, a certain softness, a low twist, which you cannot get in a machine. Okay. Now what you can see is the fluff on the lower side is the brown cotton, but there's not very high contrast here. But the upper one is what we call the hill cotton. Both are short staple varieties. Now you can see the difference. I'm giving you 100 crowns in the upper gundi and the upper hank, and I'm giving you a 50 count gundi in the lower. You can just see the weight is exactly the same, but how the volume differs. And if I give you 200 counts, it'll become even slimmer. And so that's how the calculation goes. For every 1,000 meters, the weight and the volume changes. Okay, silks. Silks is another story altogether. We had only 2 varieties of mulberry silk in India. One was Bishnupur in Bengal and one was Kashmir. These were our only 2 authentic varieties of mulberry silk. But we had 42 varieties of Tussar, 5 varieties of Eri, and we were the only ones to have Muga, and we are killing them slowly. We are killing them partly because we are measuring them against the filament of mulberry. Now this the Chinese have done for more than 4,000 years, but we are still falling into the trap. Which is, even after the revolution, the Chinese were the first from 1950 to 1960 to burn the entire crop of silk, which did not produce an even filament of 1,000 meters or more. So they burnt the crop, they put it in a heap, just like we burnt the British-made clothes. And they burnt them because they wanted to standardize the filament. And today we've come full circle. The Chinese are reintroducing Tussar from Vietnam, from India, from Laos, and from Thailand, because they have lost the market on texture. They are able to sell yarn in Florence or in Como or in wherever, but they are not able to sell fabric because that fabric is so flimsy, it can only go on a Chinese dress. So the next best thing they've done is pump in 40-gram chignon and chiffon and 40-gram silk and 50-gram silk into the Indian market at 25,000 meters a day in Banaras alone. So weavers have become embroiderers. If you get 40-gram silk at 40 rupees a meter, it's cheaper than anything you could produce in Karnataka. And why wouldn't somebody opt for it? So it's not really, it's a market mechanism. And what we are not looking at, and when Kasturi was speaking, we were talking about the thrust and the threat of Banaras, is not that you can stop market forces. You cannot. This is not a moral question. This is not an ideological question. It is a question of knowing what your strengths are and make those stronger. I firmly believe you cannot stop markets from growing. You cannot stop inroads of the Chinese. You have to have hand-spun silks, create texture markets, create pattern markets that cannot be economically duplicated by machine. Economically. You can make it economically viable if you're producing 5,000 meters, but you cannot make it economically viable if I have to produce 500 meters. That is where our great strength lies. And I've done 10 districts of UP just last year, and even Mubarakpur, which is really the hinterland of the poorest of poor Banaras copies, where you can still do a lot. It was the market actually with all the traders from all over South India and East India and West India came to buy imitation Banarsis, because that was the big market. It had the 500 rupee Banarsi and the 700 rupee Banarsi, which they sold for 1,000 or 1,500 in their own markets. So it's a very interesting story, and we, instead of looking at our own strengths, it's a bit like Bahadur Shah Zafar, blaming it on somebody else, whereas he was too fond of writing poetry. So we should not talk poetry, we should talk hardcore economic sense and say this is our strength and build it up. So I'm interested in anybody here who's interested in making a bank which will finance and fund weavers who are able and prepared to do things in which they are ahead of the machine. I'm not interested in giving them doles. I'm not interested in bamboozling them back into weaving. If they think it's easier and simpler to work in a mill, let them go. We cannot stop it. But if they think, if I can last out these 10 years, I'll be the winner in 10 years, that's the kind of weaver you want. That's the kind of weaver who will produce for you which only he can. Okay, let's go ahead from silks. So I have Muga on the top, I have tussar worms on the right, and I have mulberry on the right. Okay, let's go. This is the breeding in Bengal, Murshidabad particularly, of mulberry, but unfortunately they're doing only Malda, and Bishnupur, which was one of our greatest strengths, is being neglected. Okay. This is natural dyes. We've got the dye vats on the sides of Mandsaur, which is our poppy growing belt. It was the only belt I was accosted and told to get away from because I was doing something dangerous, till I told them I was only into handlooms, and they said they would give me a gunman to protect me. I said, I don't think I needed him, but they still put him outside my room, just in case somebody wrong came along. Okay. This is preparatory processes. This is the warping on the left. This is the preparation of the adai, or what is the pattern harness of Kanchi on your right. Go ahead. I'm just taking you for a run through. I'm taking you from the simplest loom out in front of the hut with no protection whatsoever, with a single bamboo stretch for the frame into the ground, a pit loom in the open, and which he wraps up the warp every night, takes it into his house, and he has the warping on your right. I'm taking you into Kerala and how the spirit of white. The one you see on the right, by the way, is Deepti Umcheri Bhala's daughter, who taught me how to wear the unstitched Mohiniyattam sari. So the sari was very much prevalent in Kerala, but it just got overtaken by the stitched Mohiniyattam costume. So what is very interesting is she turned the upper portion of the pleats. She took it higher, she turned the upper portion of the pleats outwards, and that became the fan. For men and for women, the showing of the crotch and the backside is always considered unsavory. I partly agree with that, and I think it could be I can't tell that to a Koli woman who will wear her kashta so tight that her backside, whether it's appealing or not, will have to show in abundance. But this is the Mohiniyattam unstitched sari as it was worn by the guru of Deepti Umcheri Bhala. Okay. This is the Nambudiri wearing style, which had no blouse, and it was basically a turnover. There was two munda. The munda was the lower half, and there was another veshti on the upper, but it was still turned over the bust. And you have very small designed elements, but they're beautiful. The one on the left has a white and a black thread thrown in together to create that texture in the pallu. You have the simplicity of design in the three lines on the sari on the left. On the left, a plain solid. You have the tribals facing Tamil Nadu, and you've seen saris that were basically produced for them in the area around Coimbatore, but now they have been introduced in Kerala as well. Okay, let's go. That's the Puliyal Kara, or the patterned elements coming into the saris of Kerala, and they came into the Munda Veshti earlier. By the way, the Veshti, the upper portion, is a post-1930s, 1940s development. Till then, there was no upper garment for men or for women in Kerala. So it was only you held a piece of cloth if somebody from the upper caste came by. And you can see it's a bit like the tribal, societies, in which I happened to have the good fortune in 1985 to attend the biggest gathering of 5,000 tribals in Bastar, where they spent from 10 in the night till 6 in the morning discussing whether they should adopt the blouse or not. And they were all youngsters, and it was a very heated discussion. And as always, the boys didn't want the blouse introduced and the girls did. And they spent the whole night discussing this. It was very interesting because they said, you don't get looked at, we are the ones who get looked at. And so they said, why do you see it from their eyes? You should see from your own eyes. And it's a very, I think it's an interesting anthropological question. Can you see the world from your own eyes rather than the others? And if you could do that, well, you would be back to the Gupta age and wear only your 3 chains round your lower half and 50 chains round the front. Okay. The weather's conducive. Anyway, then that's the Chuttikara, which is an inlaid arrowhead pattern. That's the other very fine, very beautiful device only available in Kerala. Instead of doing it with 3 shuttle, they do it just by inlaying that back of the arrow. It's called the Chuttikara. Okay. And then finally, I think a textile was never produced in Kerala, but for it. It is the Veera Ali Patta, and it was used both by the priests. And I found this wonderful maiden playing with a ball in her right hand in her Virali Patta. That's how they were in Kerala. And everybody tells me that stomach is too ugly for words. But I think it's the classical Tribhangi. That's how you're supposed to be. It's just the eyes of the beholder. Okay. Don't you think? Okay, I'm coming to Karnataka. I'm taking you on a journey which starts along the west coast, takes you northwards and brings you back to the right, on the southern coast. I'm taking you through Karnataka, and there's a village procession. You start your stripes and checks story, and the, what is that community on the right? Halaki Vokaliga. It is a semi-tribal community. And that's how she wears her sari. And you can see that the tying of it has covered, as I said, is covered heavily with those chains of beads. So she doesn't have to go into too much detail up there. Okay. Then we begin with the Sada Patta. And then the Patta becomes what is known as a Dundu Patta, which splits border. The border splits up, divides up, and begins the Selari or the stripe in the body. That's the Sada, this is the Selari. I'm telling you the story it goes from simple to complex as far as I can in every state to run through. Okay, let's go. We get into the Kaddi, which is the check, and the left has the simple check with the Dundu split pattern border and the multiple color check. You throw in 3 colors in the warp, you throw in another 3 colors in the weft, and you get a myriad of 5 color checks. And that's known as the Kuttalam. The Kuttalam can have 5 to 7 to 9 color checks by the simple combination of colors in the warp and weft. Okay, and we have the Gobbi Sire, which is a community of farmers basically, and you have the check sari with a very limited pattern elements in the pallu. Okay, let's go. We come to the multiple color checks with the Kuttalam again, what I showed you earlier. But you have these very fine colors, which I'm sorry are not very clear on the right side and the left side. But the left one is an indigo with a Ganga Jamna border on both sides, and the influence of Tamil Nadu visible on your right, because you're beginning with these chains and anklets and the division of the border. You have a little pattern on your right, you have a little pattern on your left, and you have a big space between them. And that's Udupi. That's very close to Tamil Nadu. Okay, let's get it. We come to the Dhotra. Well, the Dhotra finds its echo in Maharashtra as well, in Umred, but this is worn by men and women, considered extremely auspicious because the cotton in the body combines with the silk in the border. And you have the man wearing it for weddings, you have the women wearing it, and the Dhotra here has the Rui Pool or the Jai Pool. The flower directory of India is a very fascinating story altogether. The flower of the north starts with the Rui Pool, which is the cotton flower I showed you in the beginning, and becomes the Rudraksham in Tamil Nadu. And the transition of that story is the wonder of what makes us speak different languages and yet speak the same language. Let's go. This is the Chukki Kaddi Sire, which brings the multiple color check but brings the tie-dye element facing Karnataka. Karnataka facing Andhra in a more complex version of what is the Shahapuri Pallu on the right, and on the left a far more complex version of it. And that's the, what do we call this? The khans on the left, and the Bhutyeru, which is a community of mendicants, performing mendicants, who come around with their duffly, they perform and they ask for money. I think it's an ideal way to live, but difficult. But anyway, this is courtesy my friend B. Jayashri, who took me, who's a great theatre enthusiast and a friend of mine from the School of Drama days, and took me all around to photograph all these vagrant wearing styles. Okay. This is the Illical, which is really a cross area of influence. Illical technically falls into Karnataka, but influences Maharashtra, influences Andhra as well. You will see it all the way around. This is the simple Illical on your left and the Kasuti Illical on your right. That's we have the Yakshagana. Yeah, they're both boys, but sometimes I found in so many places the boys were much better at donning the saris than the girls. I'm glad they're not part of this theatre form. Okay, and you have the silk on your left. This is the Parvati Kase, the lady on your left, and this is a male character on your right. So you can see how much you can do. This is the Malikar Muru sari with the tie-dyed borders on your left and a tie-dyed chukki within the check on your right. This is the Tarban, or the equivalent of the tissue of Mysore, in the center. This is a Singhasana sari, and I learned now from Chimi Nanjappa showed it to us first, and we produced it for one of the Vishwakarmas in 1986. But I found it, she said it probably came from Indonesia, and it came as a trade textile to be produced in Karnataka, and has a body, pallu, and border pattern, but that's what gives it its weight. But its directory is so close to this temple texture that I found on a pillar in Halabit. Okay. That's when the pettu, or the patterned element, the pattern harness, comes to Karnataka from, they say, through Andhra, from Varanasi, sometime in the early 19th century. That's when they took off from the temples. They had the temples as a ready reference, so the elephants and the yalis and the horses and the upturned trunk and the downturned trunk elephants, they all came into the saris for the first time from the 19th century, late 19th century, and into the 20th. So they really took off. They became free of the cotton range, and they branched out on a pattern range of their own. Okay. And that's when you pattern. Now, sometimes in the 20s, they began wearing chignons and chiffons from France. And when they became a little nationalistic, they thought, why shouldn't they be producing lighter fabrics? And they started producing chiffons in patterned borders in Mysore. So the first of these is on your left, and the heavily patterns, Kanchi lookalikes. It's very interesting. Karnataka is the first state in which the British actually succeed in cultivating mulberry yarn of the Chinese variety. They introduce the cultivation, but it doesn't take off in Karnataka first. It takes off in Kanchi first, and then comes back to Karnataka. So these are the earliest of those examples. I go on to Goa, which is a state which is underestimated, but it is the only state in India in which weaving was banned for 250 years. And when I went in 1986, they were still weaving inside the basements of their house. I asked this gentleman, the first one I met in Bardez, why was he still in a basement? He said it was banned, so I just kept to the basement. It's much cooler than being above. And my market, which I thought would have grown since 1960, is now dying out. So I find that the sari, when it was banned, flourished. And as soon as the ban was lifted, it went. They started taking saris from Karnataka and Maharashtra. Okay, so I'll just show you 2 or 3 of the wearing styles. This is the Kunbi Hindu way of wearing it. Okay. This is the Dhangar shepherds way of wearing it. And this is the Christian Kunbi, who were actually semi-tribal communities, but they became farm labor for the Portuguese. And this is the variety of checks and stripes, which is a little similar to Maharashtra and Karnataka, but quite distinct. The only person who's taken interest in this is Monica Correa, who has taken off on producing these saris. Okay, I'm beginning with Maharashtra with a strange story of the donkeys being painted and the buffaloes being painted for Nag Deepavali, the day after Deepavali, where everyone worships the means of their livelihood. So, these were the dhobis celebrating their donkeys, and these were the milkmen celebrating their buffaloes. And similarly, I had the silk weavers worship their silk and their zari. But I didn't, that was obvious, so I didn't do it. Okay, but I loved the donkeys. They were all polka-dotted donkeys all over Pune city. And the buffaloes never looked more beautiful as far as I could make out. Okay, they were with haldi and kuku. So that's the Chandrakala on your right, a resin-printed sari worn on the first Sankranti after marriage, the plain Sada barn sari, which has echoes all across Maharashtra. Maharashtra is one of the states where the designer's directory remains similar all over the state but gets interpreted differently. Some states have this wonderful way of interpreting the same design differently, and some states just go off on their own and create a huge variety. But what is very interesting is, and that I think reflects on our society today, from top to bottom, or bottom to top, whichever way you look at it, there is a single design directory. You find that the chamar and the baniya and the sonar wearing exactly the same sari. Only difference is that the chamar and the dhobi will have a pure cotton with yellow borders, and like you saw in Karnataka before, and as soon as you get to the baniya and the sonar, they will have zari, or they will have yellow silk, or they will have pure tussar. So the only bifurcation is in the nature of materials. That's how they distinguish caste. And it will get to a finer count. It will not be so coarse. It won't be a 20s count sari, it will be a 80s count sari. But that's as much as the difference goes. I even had areas like Raipur where the Muslims wore exactly the same sari. I could not make them out. In the area where Habib Tanveer comes from, you cannot make out a Muslim on the street. They wear exactly the same. Balaghat, you cannot make out a Muslim on the street. But in the pockets which have become predominantly Muslim and had Muslim rulers such as Lucknow, Hyderabad, and there was an introduction of the stitched garment, partly because of royal patronage. Okay. And we have the Maratha Moli, which is the Maratha wearing style, and you can see the size, the back side, and the wearing style, which I was mentioning earlier. But as long as you're not self-conscious about it, I suppose it goes. Let's go. And you have the Ruipuli again, and you have the tie-dyed of Achalpur, which was extinct, and we got it woven again once we saw the small cuttings in the bottom of their bed linen, and they redid it for us. So you can see how much digging you can do and how much you can bring back. That's the wonder of it. If you have somebody who goes looking out for something in this country which hasn't been done for 50 years, you can still redo it by living memory, not by looking at a book and showing them. They drew all these designs on my copybook. We commissioned it, and we did not know what the samples would look like till they came. Okay, let's go. We have the Koli wearing styles and the Khans on your left. Now, what is very interesting is the salwar is suddenly introduced in a place called Nanded in Maharashtra, and the Susi fabric for the salwar is the second from the top on the left, in which a running stitch. You have the Bal sari with the Ganga Jamna. Usually had silk in the borders, but this one had cotton. I had got certain versions woven with silk in the borders too. Okay. That's the equivalent of what you saw there of the dhotra, and this is a sari. The man is wearing it for his wedding. This is the equivalent of the silk cotton of Maharashtra, known as the Tapshila sari of Muvar, facing Karnataka once again. So you can see all these admixtures taking place. Okay, let's go. And you have the Khatkari, farm working women on your left, along with the Koli on your right. Okay. Okay, this is the Bal saris. You go up the ladder and reinterpreting what I was saying. The same design directory is becoming more sophisticated. It's got a silk in the body with zari in the pallu, and you're going in the same directory is going upwards. And here you've got a one-by-one check which you can barely see in blue and black on the right. It is woven in Ahmednagar, which had not woven again for 40 years, and this was woven on commission by us. Okay. This is Ahmednagar on your left again, and Nagpuri on your right. It's these fine, fine checks with zari in the borders. Okay. This is, you're approaching Paitan, but you haven't yet got there. This is Yaula. This is the outside of a Haveli in Yaula on your right, and that's the border. You can see exactly where it comes from. Let's go. Paitan. You've reached Paitan, and you've got into loom embroidery in the weft, in the pallus, and a warp pattern border. Okay? And that's the classical Paitan cotton body on your right. That's the man who owns the Haveli, and the two Yaula pieces that are woven as saris as well as safas. By the way, the safa was a very interesting disappearing element in this area, because I kept finding why they kept saying this safa went out in 1942, and I said, why the hell did it go in 42? You didn't have any great problem in 42. They said it did. Gandhi came in 42 and the safa went. We all introduced the topi. So we got a negative view of Gandhi, which I had never looked at quite from that point of view. Okay. We come into Gujarat, very diabolical state. You have the sari among the upper Patel community. You have the sari among the Jains. You have the sari among the Parsis. You have the sari dotted in the mercantile communities. Then you have the sari in the other end with the tribal communities, facing Madhya Pradesh, printed, facing Maharashtra in the south, but in the center it's all three-piece. Various versions of the ghagra, the choli, often without a back, but a huge odhani in various forms, lengths and widths, pleated, worn, similar to a sari, but not quite. So the two, I'm confused about this. Whether the two-piece or three-piece drape precedes the single drape or comes after it. Or does it come because of influences with Islam or with, I cannot say. This is one of the reasons I didn't do the Northeast, because the 2 or 3 piece drape, and I have 40 communities, linguistic communities in Assam alone, and I couldn't find a single person who could help me with 40 communities language-wise. So there's no point in doing it. I have to do it through translation. No fun whatsoever. They're going to tell me everything that's polite. Okay. So you have the first appearance of the weft ikat in tens count on the left, woven in South Gujarat for in the Valsad area, Valsad, and it's a tribal community. This is wearing a weft ikat, double ikat, mind you. That white stripe is tie-dyed in the weft and in the warp to get that pure white. And here I have the right side, the single ikats of Surat being produced today. Okay, so it doesn't come from nowhere. Then you have the woolen veils, there it goes, then you have the mushroom, cotton and silk mixes, and she wears it as the blouse with a 3-piece drape, 2-piece drape, the wonderful Parsi garas, and courtesy Piroja Narialwala, who is my friend Rashna's aunt. She's wonderful. I mean, she had the finest collection, she had the finest workshop of Parsi embroidery in Mumbai in the 80s. Okay. And that's the wearing style. You have the self-patterned silk on your left. Then you come to the brocades of Surat, and these were the finest workshops preceding Varanasi. So before Varanasi grew as a center of silk weaving, these were the silk brocading centers of Surat, and they produced the outlined pattern, which you see only in silk in Murshidabad, but here you found them in gold, metallic yarns, as well as silk. You have the single ikats on the left and the double ikats of Patola and pattern on your right. This one. Then you have the bandhani coming up. Now what is interesting about bandhani is it becomes somewhere between the weave and the print. The print imitates the bandhani in all cases. Here you have the bavan bag on your left and the gharchola on your right. The panetar on your right for marriages and the kachi mimon veil on your left. Okay. We have the danks of Gujarat, infamous for their Christian conversions, on your right, and their wearing style, and the saris on your left. Unfortunately, we come to UP. Very calm, docile UP, which was volatile for the first time, and I was pushed back from eastern UP because of the ongoing rush of the great temple escapade. Okay. And I found, to my horror, in Shahjahanpur, facing Jhansi, that whole belt of Lalitpur was producing 40s count cottons with zari and floss silk in what was known as the bound sari, which was literally a skirt-like fabric produced in 10-meter lengths, and the nefa was woven as a border, turned over and worn as with a veil, with a printed veil. But I thought it was classic. Then we come to what is the motia, the simple coarse count saris with very little patterned elements, which were worn with a kasota, or the one between the legs, which I had not expected in UP at all. But this is just their Jhansi, by the way. And this is the style I wear, frankly, except our guru in Banaras for many years during the Vishwakarma exhibitions. This is the first advent of imitating jamdani with chicken. It is basically chicken being imitating what the effect of transparency or translucency of jamdani in a multiple, in hundreds of pieces, which you could not do on the loom. And this is the first chickens on saris of, I would say, mid. It's not very old. It's not very old. On saris, at least, it came much later. Okay. This is very interesting. You have the metallic, the badla embroidery, still echoing the chicken on your left, and rogan, which is tinsel printing, which is actually a masala being pushed into onto the cloth, and gold leaf or silver leaf being put on it, and the excess wiped off on your right in a sari. We come to warp patternings and weft patternings from what was, we are not into Varanasi yet, but we are into eastern UP, and you can see the effect of Banaras. We are still 180 kilometers away from Banaras. And we can see, and this is Mubarakpur. So you can see what I was talking about, the cheaper Banarsi, the multipliable Banarsi, produced in thousands of pieces and sold at anywhere between 800 to 1800 rupees, and then sold all over the country between 2000 and 2800 for marriages, for all kinds of. The traders from Coimbatore would come like in the Diwali months and buy the kilo. Okay.
Are they all handloom?
There's still, these few producers were handloom, but there's a lot of palloom in this area. And there's a lot of terry yarns, nylons, you say it, plastics. Yeah. Now I'm coming to Banaras. I'm closing in into Banaras. I'm bringing you the 4 different techniques of Banaras. The Getwa, which is basically the heddle operated diagonal pattern technique of Banaras. You can see the pattern always goes in the diagonal. Let's go. This is still going in the diagonal. This is still Getwa. It's known as Getwa. Then Banaras with the Phekwa, which is the shuttle goes all through, but they're able to embed it. And this is the what we call the Namavalis. They have Krishna Namavalis, they have Rama Namavalis, produced essentially for Bengal, but also produced for other parts of central India. Banaras produced for South India, Banaras produced, that is why it had that status. It was not only a center of religion and culture, but it had a link with every other. It could absorb techniques from all over the country and sell to every part of the country. So these are the Namavalis. Then you have still the kadua technique, and you have the kinkab on your right. And no, 1 minute, take it before. And the double-sided pattern on your left, which is still in the kadwa and pekwa. Okay, let's go. And then we have the katarwa, which is a reinvention of the all-through pattern. You can see the all-through pattern at the left, and the floats, that the threads that are at the back. This was introduced by K.G. Subramaniam in Banaras in 1957. It is a modern invention of cutting short the technical device and cutting away the threads. So women actually sit and cut away the excess thread, and it became what came to be known as katarwa. And there was never any cut work in Banaras before that. It was basically getwa, pekwa, and kadwa. And katarwa is a post-50s development. Okay. We come to Madhya Pradesh. I give you a classical temple arch, temple spire on your right. I give you a very simple brick pattern, and I can see both of them reflected in the textiles. One can be very sophisticated, and the other so ordinary. Okay, let's go. This, unfortunately, is not a temple spire on your left. It is the marriage sari, which is, as I told you earlier, sprinkled with the haldi, but it has the dibbi of sindoor in the pallu, and that's what distinguishes it from the other saris. The dibbi of sindoor, I said, why is it so essential in a marriage sari? They said because it contains a sawa tola of sindoor. So what is so great about sawa? Sawa में अंकुर फूटता है, 1.5 में फलता है और 1.25 में नाश हो जाता है. It is the concept of potential growth. Potential growth. Potent growth, shall we say. Okay. And on the right, the sindoor, the dabbi gets combined with a bird, and quite obsequious bird, very simple. Okay, let's go. And we get the more sophisticated saris of Balaghat, South Madhya Pradesh, where the check comes in. And you have, this is the longest sari of Central India, 9.5 meters, worn with a double kashta. So it's a bit like a chastity belt. The kashta goes front to back and back to front. But they manage quite well. This is the entire design directory of Burhanpur, which was the meeting point of north and south. It is the place where Aurangzeb became the representative of the Mughal army, and where he, I believe, turned away from music and dance because he fell in love with a courtesan across the river, and that place is still commemorative. But this granite masjid is the most fascinating repository of the entire design concept of that area. It has the shankh on your left, it has the sankadi in the middle, the unending chain, and it has the paise towards the end, and the ambi on the lower edge. Okay, let's go. So you see that from a distance, the same ala in the masjid and the sari on your left. Okay, then we come to Chanderi. Chanderi was essentially white till the early 20th century. It became pastel because they introduced silk in the warp. They dyed the silk and introduced it, so they got a pastel range. So that's how you get, this is an anguri on your right. Sorry, a Jamani on your right. Then you come to the prints of Javed and Jobat, which are wax resist prints in indigo vats, which we showed you right at the beginning. Let's go. And facing Madhya Pradesh, Bagh, and my wonderful friend Ismail Khatri, who, once I asked him to produce the entire design directory that he had learned as a child, produced the first collection of nearly 180 designs which he had learnt from his childhood up. And he said it was the tribals who taught me my sense of aesthetics. He is a madman, but a wonderfully brilliant one. When I asked him why he didn't give me the nuska for how he got the red so red, he said, मैं सब कुछ आपको बता दूंगा तो मैं पाकिस्तान चला जाऊंगा. So I thought that was a nice one. Chalo. So this is tinsel again, and in Indore, I took the entire design directory. It is the cheapest form of embellishment for marriages, which are, the dupatta or the sari doesn't have to last very long. So it was being done there. And then I come to the classical chanderi or the dochashmi, double-sided, satin weave, double-colored, cotton body, silk borders, with zari in the stripe of the body. This was with a wonderful lady called Sita Puvaya in Mumbai, who set up handloom house for Rahmatullah Ansari in the good old days, which I'm sure he's forgotten. Okay, I come to the next state, which is, they've got bifurcated now, unfortunately, and that is Chhattisgarh. And I come to Sarguja in North Chhattisgarh, where that's what I found, the midday sun in 49 degrees, and that was the textile that they got woven for us. Okay, let's go. That was the sari of Sarguja with a chaur. That little dash pattern is chaur, which is literally the rice grain. That's the wearing style. That's the tussars of Bilaspur, and now they're big because all those traders who came out of Bilaspur for the first time have now become very big in Delhi and in Bombay and in other parts. And when I was persuading them to come out at that time, it was really quite a wonder. But they did have some wonderful skills, including three shuttle and variable patterns in the borders. Okay, let's go. Bastar with three shuttle. What is very interesting is this other story. You have a very high technique, high skill, in a very low count. Everybody said to me, you are mad producing 20s count saris with three shuttle. Who will buy them? At that time, the first saris got sold at 600 rupees. Now he won't sell them even for 1400. So I think he's come a long way, and Bastar has done fairly well for himself, and so has Odisha. Unfortunately, they don't know how to move. Now, this is the interesting story. How do you move with a design directory to contemporize it? How do you move without mixing up design directories of every area? How do you move with design development and interaction without confusing what they are good at and what they can develop onwards with? That's where you need design intervention. I'm sorry, there's no shortcut to it. I can't expect weavers to do that because they don't know what somebody else is doing. Okay. We come into, I'm still in Jharkhand? I'm coming to North Bihar, and that was the first hut, and that was the plain colored sari range with embroidered blouses. So these were the saris that got hit first when the British came in, because they were sada saris. And when the plain fabrics came, they started dyeing them. And that's when the first khadi, hand spinning, got hit first, and then the sada sari, because the unpatterned fabrics will always go first. And Bihar suffered more than Bengal, because Bengal was still stronger at tradition. Bihar has always been a bit happy-go-lucky. They throw the seed and something grows. Then they eat whatever they get. Okay. Okay, that was the first sujnis which we found in the baskets which they wore with that sari, and that was the hut motifs in relief. That is the Bavan Butti, or the sari which had disappeared. We picked it up, an early sample of it in the 40s, and now they were being only made on curtain cloths, unfortunately. With wonderful intervention, they told me who started it was Upendra Maharathi ji. And I wondered why he didn't do saris. But anyway, it's a long story. Many big people have done many good things, and many by accident, including Gandhi ji, shut off the weavers. Okay, let's go. This is the Maldehi, which is the lal, very fine stripe tussar, and nobody was prepared to touch saris in Bhagalpur and that area of South Bihar when I first went there, and I'm glad to say I gave the entire design directory to that Niranjan fellow, and he has made minted millions. And I keep telling him, now you must think 3 years ahead and develop a new directory, and I'll help you do it. But he says, abhi to bikta hai, to kyun soche? तो बिल्कुल बिहारी एटीट्यूड है उसकी, तो वो जब तक बिहार है तब तक है, वो क्या करें. ये पूर्णिया facing Bengal, and that's the wearing style. I come into Jharkhand, and that's the hut on your right. That was the loom that you saw outside the house. That was the weaver on the loom. Let's go. That was the wearing style. You can see how it's folded over to make a kind of pouch in the front. So all their goodies are put into that. The pan, the supari, that's the other one in South Ranchi. Jharkhand. Oh, Bengal. I've come into Bengal and I tell you a very beautiful sari which is in coarse counts, which has completely disappeared from Bengal. It's known as the Pacha Phere, in which there are the two borders on either end and the third encircles the hips. Literally the encircling of the hips border sari. And I think it's a wonderful device. And what's interesting is it goes from coarse counts, it goes into fine counts, and it even goes into Baluchar. I found a Pacha Phere in Baluchar. Chalo, let's go.
It goes into Banarasi. My grandmother's wedding sari is a Pacha Phere.
Pacha Phere. Pacha Phere literally means. Now, the design trajectory of Bengal I find fascinating, partly because the Lal part dominates it. The Lal of the Alta, the Lal of the Devi, the Lal of the Tika. The Lal goes around, and the beautiful image of Rabindranath which says, the red of the river encircles the lady as she walks by, and taking his heart with her. But what is beautiful about it is, the left one, literally, when I asked the weaver what it was called, it was known as the Shite Shindur, which is literally the parting, the red of the vermilion in the parting of the hair. And they will tell you exactly how many threads that red must have. They will say 25 threads of red encircled, embanked by 55 threads of black will make a Shite Shindur. Then you come to the next one next to it, which becomes the Jolchuri. Jolchuri is literally with the throwing of the pebble in the water of the pond, and it creates that ripple, and the first ripple is on there. And then you have the classic Shantipuri Lal part on your right. Okay, so that's the story. Then you have what is called the Pacha Phere. Pacha Phere meaning the 5 border sari. Unfortunately, it makes very short women look shorter, but it's rather beautiful, and it has, this was what was originally the warp pattern, what was the original Tangal. And then you can see how Tangal started introducing Jamdani elements, cheaper Jamdani elements you can see in these booties, and started imitating because Jamdani sold more. But actually it was warp pattern borders, which was in the original Tangal, which is in East Bengal. Okay. Then you have what I told you earlier, the Pacha Phere of Shantipur on your left, on the top, with the 3 borders, and this is the detail of it on the bottom. And the Rui Pool or the Jai Pool of the classic Shantipuri on your right, in the Lalpar. These are classic design references. This is Ira De's sari on the left, and I think the Bengalis, once they know that you are serious, and nobody opened their doors as well to me as Bengal did. Knowing I was a Punjabi, nobody said that Punjabi, which I was really happy to know, including Avita, who opened so many doors for me in Bengal. Okay. This is how the sari was born before the hot iron came into India with the French. The hot iron came in and brought in the flat sari. And this is how the sari was. And this is Kavik Sarkar's Dhobi, who did this for me in the sari. He made the kocha, tied the 2 ends with a thread, and this is how they were kept and stacked in the cupboard. I always wondered, how could you wear a 250 count sari without a petticoat? So that explains it. If you have so heavy a starch into it, you have a transparent fabric become a non-transparent fabric. Apart from the joke that Ritain would always tell me that they wore it as nightwear and they painted their bottoms red. I said, now Ritain, that's one of your asides. It's typical Ritain, you know. He would say, no, the Sonar Bene. The Sonar Bene is the goldsmith's wives, wore these as nightwear. I said, you must have seen the Sonar Bene. I never did. Okay. But this is my photographer, Dilip Sinha's daughter, who is wearing this sari, which I got done in Calcutta, and it looked beautiful. It was a 200 count sari, and I got it done by Vigdas Dhobi, and it was draped on her. And you can see how it becomes totally non-transparent, even in the Bengali wearing style. Okay, let's go. This is what is known as the dhakka, classic Dhonekhali. Dhonekhali uses the yellow that you see in the stripe, which is a step up from the Jolchuri, in which the receding stripe goes all through the sari. So what you see in yellow is in muga, and what you see in white is cotton. So you throw the pebble and the stripe goes right through running. It becomes from narrow to broad. It's the dhakka, and then you see the paijeb on your right in the classic Dhonekhali. The design directories are what are really fascinating. Okay, let's go. And then of course you come to Jamdani, which overwhelms everybody because it's really literally loom embroidery done freehand without jangla or jala, and the best weavers always did it freehand. So therefore, there is a slight difference in booties, there is a slight difference in placements, they're never in straight lines, and that's the wonder of the sari. Okay. That's the classic Nilambari. It is worn on the night of Deepavali because it is a dark night with no moon. And you wear the gold and the nila in which you shine on the known moon night. That's what the significance of the Nilambari is. Okay. These are the Dhakai Bhitis. They are double-sided satin weaves woven in East Bengal essentially. And I'm just showing you the circumstances in which they are woven with the upla covered window for this light coming in on the weaver's loom. And this is the classic saris. Then these are the two original, the Tasar on your left, Lalpar, and the Bishnupur, which is like Malai. It is the only silk original to Mulberry, which is original to India. It has this wonderful keychain without which it doesn't hold, but really is, and it has the pajeb and the lota pata. The lota pata means the vine of leaves. Yeah. And then you have the Gorad and Koryal, and you can see echoes of Banaras on your left, and the Koryal. And the classic Murshidabad Baluchar with the temple on your left and the figurative motifs on your right. And there's the Pacha Pere once again in Baluchar. So it isn't only a lower class phenomenon, which I thought it was. I thought it was a lower class trying to be very sexy, but it goes all the way through. Okay. And there you go to North Bengal and you suddenly come to the two-piece drape, which is the dhokna and the panchi being woven on the backstrap loom. And there was no blouse essentially, but this is also the covering up age. So they've introduced the blouse and the dhokna and panchi of North Bengal, Darjeeling. We come to Odisha, Santhal, plain sari, very little element, but that's the wall that was, it was so beautiful that I thought the sari really didn't need anything else. Okay. And that's another wearing style of the Santhals. That's the ikat, which has taken over, unfortunately, from all the cost count areas. I didn't get enough of Orissa for you, by the way, because of this wonderful high technology in which the files cannot be opened for some very mysterious reason. Okay. Okay. And that, an excuse for a sari, it's the Bonda women who weave a hemp in the warp with cotton dyed yarn in the weft, and they wear it as an excuse for a sari in the lowest half, and only the rings on their necks and their pouches for their upper garment. Okay. We come into Andhra. Classic Andhra, Lepakshi bird. Okay. Let's go. I don't have enough wearing styles at Andhra too, but this is a Medak district a singer, mendicant singer, who is going through the fields to sing in somebody's house. That's the Sada Botanchu. That's the simplest of the Botanchus. Botanchu will go on all the way into Tamil Nadu, but this is Andhra. This is the classic Kaddi Sire, check. Okay, this is not, this is Andhra. Let's go. Then I get into Khadi with 3 shuttle on your right, which belonged to Sushila Mehta, who passed away long years ago, but gave us the opportunity to photograph her saris. And on the left, one of the khadis that was produced for the Khadi exhibition on your left. Okay, that is the classic Tirupati Balaji dhoti, which is woven in enormous widths for Balaji, with the Vishnu symbols of the conch and the tilak on your right. Let's go. The simplest Venkat Giri on your left, accentuated by the mutara, embanking the gold borders, and the introduction of the Upara Jamdani, which we came in post Vishwakarma. Gadwal with cotton bodies, silk borders. Armoor, imitating Paitan, but with the introduction of the Hyderabadi influence of the Nizam's estate with the Gulab Jal sprinklers on your right. And Dharmavaram, classic silks of Andhra. So you can see how slightly they are distinguished. when you come into Tamil Nadu. But Tamil Nadu is what we are going towards. We are building up towards Tamil Nadu because that's the epitome. Everything gets frozen in Tamil Nadu. It is the ultimate point of arrival of all this is happening in South India. They freeze everything. They make the column dots and the column gets frozen. Whereas here, there's still a lot of mobility between Islamic, Hindu, North, South, East, West. Whereas in Tamil Nadu, you reach a totally frozen directory. It is the epitome. Okay. Tussars of Andhra, which lost out. There was a lot of tussar cultivation in the north of Andhra, and they've reintroduced it on the right in the Potapaka tussars recently in the last 20 years. The left side is almost gone. It used to be produced in an area called Peddapuram, which is now out of active range. Okay. Ikat has suddenly taken over, though Chirala has died, but Ikat in Nalgonda has taken over, and luckily there are two looms, one with Mr. Anjaya and one with another gent who keeps these two looms of the Telia Rumal, no matter how distorted the animals are. One of the printed kalamkari and one of the painted kalamkari on your right. The Mashru and Himru, both produced in Hyderabad by Soraya Hassan. And we are out into Tamil Nadu and the great Kanchi temple on your left and the simplicity of that haldi dyed piece of fabric which I spoke to you about initially on the deity. Okay, that's the Alai Kosavam, the side pleat, the working woman's sada. Okay. The Sirukattam, I'm talking to you now, I've divided Tamil Nadu very simply as cotton, silks, cottons and silks. And they are all subdivided into plains, stripes check, Sirukattam, three shuttle and patterned. So here we come to the epitome of the cottons. The tie-dyed body with a patterned border in the Sungari of Madurai on the left, and the Kodali Karapur, which is a sari woven first with a pattern. All that's in gold is woven first. Then it is painted in the gaps of the woven section, usually in Tamil Nadu itself previously, and now it was done in Hyderabad for the Vishwakarma exhibition. Okay, and this was Sikanayakanpet revived in Sikanayakanpet, and I'll show it to you in the context, if there is time, of Vishwakarma, which revived this technique of hand painting on fabric. We have the Iyer wearing style in the plain of the silk, the sada of silk, the Sirukattam of silk, the stripe and the check, the Iyengar style and the three shuttle of silk, and the pettu, the patterned, both in the body and in the pallu. And you can see this is where probably the Arai, when it came to arrive, the temple inspiration first flourished in Tamil Nadu. And then we come to cotton silks. All that you see, the check in the dark color is usually in cotton. It holds and binds the silk. And in this case, on the left, the cotton is usually the border and the silk in the body, and the silk is usually the border. These are usually dhotis on your left, but they have now got adapted into saris as well. And this is the coronard on your right. This is a series of dhotis, and which have now adapted into saris, mostly in the Kanchi area, but also in Madurai. Okay, and we have the Iyengar wearing style on the right. We come back to three shuttle in cotton for some strange reason, and back to where we were. Now that's the end of my story, and I had a map for you, but this wonderful device that I have called the PowerPoint didn't carry it. But I'll have a better story going for you out of the book as soon as the book comes out. What I really hope to do is set up a small fund for developing saris that are going out, number one, and number two, have the sari school do the courses so that people can commission saris. I keep 100 great examples of saris which they can see, touch, feel, and they can design, develop themselves for the lengths and widths they want. If they want to wear it like me with one piece of fabric and one sari, it's fine by me too. They should fashion. I don't think until younger people take to wearing the unstitched garment that it has a long lease of life. Unless they refashion it for themselves, it'll never come back. So you have to leave it free. Let the traditionals be known, let the why, what and how be known, and let them make something else out of it for themselves. Then it can become a popular garment. That's all I have to say. If you want to see some Vishwakarma pieces, if you have the time, I'm glad to show you another. This is the epitome of the pyramid. So you can just see that between 1981-82 to 1992, when you commissioned pieces, and we didn't know in the first Vishwakarma what the pieces would look like. But when we produced 560 pieces, and out of which 270 were displayed. So this is pigment painted Pichwai, and just Martin Singh trying to find out how we can use religious textiles for non-religious purposes. Okay. I'm just taking for another Pichwai. Gopashtami without the presence of Krishna. So you can hear the flute, but you can't see the Krishna. The first paintings of Orissa, Patachitra, being done on a 20-foot scale on tussar. So it's a miniature technique being used on a scale unprecedented. This was an exhibition in homage to Dr. Salim Ali, Birds and Animals in Indian Textiles, and he drew all the birds that he had ever seen. This is Astra, and I'll show you the detail of it because then you'll see. This is the theme of war without the presence of human beings, interpreted by Mohan Meher's guru, who was a wonderful man. And this is Kalamkari, still dye painted, on the life of Christ. The Muslim, can you put this off, please? This is the seascape which this man had never seen before, and he interpreted these fishes because he lived in the interior. These are the vahanas of the gods, which became actual characters themselves. He had a wonderful line. This is the second Akin Pet technique which I showed you on the sari. This is how it started. These were pictorials which were hung behind the deity, and we couldn't find a use for them in the temple. So we began making furnishings, and this is how the furnishings came, but they were the first painted, the red, black, this is the detail of it. This is done by a stencil technique, and all the white is what is illuminated by the stencil. And the black and red and yellow and blue is rubbed on with a cloth. Dye painted in Bombay with Mr. Mahicha, who was a Weaver Service Center artist, and he dye painted these horses, again for animals, birds and animals, and this is the detail of it, dye painting. This is the first trees of life that were recommissioned for Vishwakarma, and this is the bamboo tree for the first time was dye painted with indigo. This was, I'm sorry it's not very clear, but these were the 108 flowers from the design directory of the inlaid Mughal buttas, and this is the detail of them. These are 4-color, 5-color, 6-color blocks. Then we come to directories, because that was another exploration, to find out which area had how many designs so that you could reinvent them for different usages. So we made a directory of, say, 1,200 blocks of Maharashtra. This was Maharashtra. This is Rajasthan, a natural dyed directory. This is Bagh, the design directory of Bagh, but only in geometric. This is the first commissioned homage to Dr. Salim Ali of the birds he had included in his book, The 1001 Birds of India, and it was commissioned on 20 feet by 8 feet spreads. This was the detailed, every bird was done in about 25 blocks of different shades, and this was the scale of the birds and animals in it. This was as we were putting it up. This is the design directory of Farrukhabad, white on white print, circulated, which had absolutely gone out of production. This is the silk screen print of, again, animals in textile, usually deers, but interpreted differently. This is Adi Moolam's interpretation of birds, and I'll show you the detail in silkscreen print. Silkscreen. There's no block here. This is a stencil print done in Gujarat. The attempt was, could we do really printing on a 10-foot scale or a 15-foot scale without the use of blocks? Because we can't go to a bigger scale unless we eliminate the block. And this was done with cardboard stencils. This is done in Indore, gold printing, but I'll show you the details which you might like here. Gold imprinting on chanderi fabric. This is the pallu of that sari. And this we come to resist. And we come to the classical patola, which was used for export to Indonesia, which was redone after many years by Chotilal Salvi and his brothers. And this is the detail of it. The accuracy, the finesse of the motif. And the geometric, this geometric pattern is an optical illusion. As you go distant from it, it looks like a square. As you come closer, it becomes a circle. This is the modernization of that technique, and this was a sari. These are the love poems of Orissa done by Mohan Meher. And he turned them into these classical love poems. Supposedly they were made by weavers, young weavers for young women that they were courting. Single ikats of Orissa, weft ikats only, done with a fish motif, probably for Southeast Asia, but reintroduced. That's the detail of it. This is the jatoi. The patterns they do with their hands on the walls of the houses, which we turned into the pattern of a sari. That's the detail of it. That's the fingerprint. The double ikat of Andhra. And the beauty of it is the square becomes perfectly, fits within another, and the check appears within the motif. There you are, the flower, the check within the leaf. That detailing is what makes it wondrous. This is an ikat of Andhra in which we use the warp in zari and the weft in ikat. And we dyed the silk to match the gold so it didn't shine. This we experimented with printed ikats. We yarn printed the motif on the yarn and then wove it. So you can see the detailing is different from the other ikat. But it's a much cheaper ikat. A resist in bandhani. If I can get it a little better into focus, I'll try and get it for you closer. There you are. Contemporizing of bandhani motifs. A leheria with the stencil printing over it. First, that's the detail of that tiger. And that's the detail of the fish. It was spread. They're all taken from Odhanis in Jodhpur, which we saw, and then they were commissioned in Jaipur with Ikramuddin Nilgar and printed by a printer in Jaipur. We come to weaves, and the simplest of three shuttle weaves in Bomkai, which was resurrected and now has gone astray. Detail of Bomkai, which was a single area of production in a tribal belt, but very sophisticated. Chanderi at its classical best, huge gold borders with gold and silver. The Upara resurrected with a parrot detail. Jamdani of Bengal, done from birds and animals in Indian textiles. Detail of tissue done in Venkatgiri. Detail of python in cotton done in Banaras. Detail of python done in python, in cotton body, silk borders. Detail of jamdani done for Vishwakarma. Detail of kodali without any dyeing or painting on it. Detail of kodali with the printing on it. Design directory of Kanchi with 1400 weft patterns, which I will show you the detail of. There you are. Every square, 3-inch square was a different pattern. So we got to know how much we could do in Kanchi. This is the classical Kanchi with Tibhaga, Mubhagam with the two colors. This is the 1000 Butta sari of Kanchi, first done for the first Vishwakarma. This is the Selari of Kanchi with a body stripe but self-patterned with a small Rudrakshi in it. This is the classical Banaras Butta Sari with the bail in the Butta. This is we call now Rangia. It had 9 colors in the warp. And the Gyasset brocades done for the Tibetans and now flourishing once again after the Chinese have picked it up and opened the trade routes. This is the flame without the symbols of the Buddhist religion. That's the detail of the flame. It usually had a Vajra with it, which was eliminated. This is how it was turned into furnishing with gold and silver. There you are in contemporized versions. This is the Tanchoi, turned with a gold and silver outlining. There you are, the detail, Tanchoi of Banaras. That's it. So that's the epitome of the pyramid, and I've shown you the expanse of what lies beneath it. And without that expanse, this is not possible. We think we can retain the top without retaining the bottom. But how do you get a weaver to go upwards, either technically or aesthetically, unless he knows what he is to compare himself with? I always said to weavers, in most places I went to, what do you think is quality in your terms? And it was very interesting from place to place. In a place in Maharashtra, they said, in the cotton body, silk border, he said, किनारे की धार ऐसी हो कि नींबू कटे तो उसके छील पड़ जाए. The sharpness of the edge of the silk in the border must be able to mark the nimbu. So I said, who did it last? And he quoted me the fellow who had done the last sari and brought it out. It's amazing. This is technical virtuosity, but inbuilt into aesthetic sensibility. These two are not apart. What we have a problem now is everything is apart. The society that we are trying to go towards thinks they can go towards that without the base. It's the base that has fallen apart. So you can't go to a high-tech society without high skill. It may be low-tech, but it'll be high skill all the same. If you lose your quality of skill, you've lost it all. So it was, if I say anything for Karnataka, the IT trade of Karnataka in terms of its IT industry was built on the fact that in the 70s, they introduced the children of jewelers into the hardware with a sixth class certificate. If they had a 6th class certificate and they wanted to go into the hardware industry, they took them and they gave the rest of their education. And that's how you got a new industry, which should be done. If you can't sustain the millions of weavers you have, instead of dumping them, find alternative avenues. They are highly skilled. They are mathematical minds. They are the equivalent of what no school in India can produce by any means whatsoever. This is another thing they would always tell me, weavers, कि मैं स्कूल नहीं भेजता हूँ क्योंकि वो समाज जो वो बच्चे पढ़ रहे हैं जिसमें उसके लिए हर आदमी के पीछे एक पुलिसमैन चाहिए, क्योंकि सही और गलत की पहचान उस स्कूल में देते नहीं, उसमें सिर्फ पढ़ना और लिखना सिखाते. तो ये दृष्टि कौन देगा, वो समझ कौन देगा, वो आँख कौन देगा, वो पहचान कौन देगा जो मैं दे सकता हूँ इसको. So that's what it's based on. Thank you very much. I think I've taken a long time.
Thank you very much. I've never heard a more fascinating lecture, and I hope we'll hear you oftener.
Yes, I'm sure.
And you must give a lecture to the Planning Commission.
Oh, I'm sure I must.
I think we had a small audience because it was declared.
Yes, doesn't matter.
Yeah, but I think
I remember seeing Habib Tanveer's performances with just 3 of us looking at it. And it was wonderful how they performed through many years. Yes. Bengal and one on Madhya Pradesh, and I'm doing the compendium volume with 14 states. So that's my Om Bhur Bhuva Swa of the science. Yes, and the handcrafted Indian textiles, which is the classical, yeah. Well, no publisher wants to now. They think they're what we shall say be said. The market can't support it. Yeah. We've become globalized. Globalized. But can you wear a pair of jeans in 49 degrees? Is what I want to know. I don't mind, but I can't wear it. Huh? And sweat it out. And air condition. And when the electricity goes, hi. And have you been into a bus where you can have all the fragrances? Oh, Bhagwan bachai. Bhagwan. I can even smell the life boy going still. Even the life boy becomes putrid. Okay. Thank you so much. If there's anything you want, I don't think there's need for more. Ha, bolo, bolo. Yes. Because they wanted Portuguese imported fabrics and they wanted the dress culture. No, no, no. No, 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 no. They were doing this for the 250 years previous. So all the looms went underground. And the farm, the tribals who were stuck to the sari became farm labor for the Portuguese. I showed you the kunbis. Yeah, they continued to wear the sari. They were a big market. And these weavers thought that 60s ho gaya to sari aur bikegi. But they didn't realize by the opening up of the border, they would have an influx from Maharashtra and Karnataka. It would be much cheaper because they got many more weavers. So many things go for the wrong reasons. Thank you so much. I was going to demonstrate some wearing styles, but I don't think it's necessary because it's already portrayed. So we'll do now.
Introducing a CD of the wearing style?
Yes, no, there will be 100 wearing. I only showed you about 10 or 15 or 20 in this.
When does your school start?
I would say after the coming of the book. The book comes out in February or March for the London Book Fair.
Okay.
And I'm hoping. I'm doing it with Roli, who is my friend in foe and my comrade in arms. And I keep telling him, Kapur saab, kuch to yaad rakhiye, aap ek aur Kapur se hi deal kar rahe hain. So he stops and gives it a thought or two.
But you're very good businessman.
But it's okay. He distributes the books well.
He does very well.
One Kapur to another. He keeps on
Of these traditions which persist, or is there a kind of long gap? For instance, this entire area is subject to Arab, to Islamic